Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Purdue, and I am a nerd, and you are fortunate enough to be here for the... Patty, what month is this? April. It's April.
It's April.
Okay, good. The April 2018 Attorney Computer Systems Coffee Pot webinar, where, as you know, we like to talk about products that add value to the products that we sell as our core products, and that includes Worldox. And so today we are talking to Judye Releford from BigHand about their product DocID that will enhance the document stamping that Worldox provides, or I should say replace the document stamping that Worldox provides. But before we get into the weeds there, let's just take a moment to look at this, which is our GoToWebinar control panel, because if you are still seeing this control panel on your screen, that means you have not pressed this button here, because had you pressed this button here that looks like an arrow that points to the right, the entire control panel will fly right off the side of your screen and disappear. Not like that. I don't know why that happened. And when you do that, the only thing left will be these buttons, and they will be snug against the right-hand side of your screen. And this button will then change to one that looks more like an arrow that points to the left. Because if you click it again, you will get this control panel back. Well, why, you're wondering, would you want the control panel back if Paul just told you how to get rid of it so you can see all the exciting stuff that's going on behind it? Because you have a question. This is the place to type a question. If you type it here, and this is the important part, remember to hit the send button, then Patty, our humble moderator and month identifier, will recognize that you have a question. She will interrupt Judye or I at just the right time, and she will ask your question for you. Now, I don't really know Judye that well, but I'll tell you that my mother could start a story and 17 minutes later have told you 17 other tangent-related stories and finished them. Oh, quit making fun of me, Patty. And never have gotten done with the first story. So if I start to do that, or maybe if Judye starts to answer a question that is slightly different than the one you intended to ask, or perhaps we're both doing a wonderful job of answering your question, but of course that would lead to other questions. If any of those things happen, just continue to type things here, continue to keep remembering to hit send, and Patty, our humble moderator and month identifier, will recognize that you have those additional questions, and she will make sure that you get your question answered as thoroughly as possible. Now, if you're feeling particularly bold, and we always love it when people do this because it doesn't happen very often, you can press this button here that looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upwards in front of it, because that means raise your hand. Same thing will happen. Patty will recognize you have a question. She will interrupt Judye or myself at just the right time. But then what she'll do is she'll unmute your microphone and let you ask your own question. Now, considering the time, at least on the Eastern time zone, if you're eating lunch, we do have a no Fritos, Doritos, or other crunchy snacks rule while the microphone is unmuted, because that microphone will remain unmuted until we are done answering your question. So if we're getting off track, like my mother with her 17 tangent stories, or if we're not understanding the question and not answering it the way you intend, or if you have follow-up questions, just talk to us, because your microphone will remain unmuted and you will have that open channel of communication between you and us, basically. I'm scrambling for my words here. And so, without further ado, I am going to press the magic buttons that will change Judye to the presenter, and she is going to tell us all about DocID. Now, Judye, while I'm pressing these magic buttons, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about BigHand?
Oh, I'd be happy to. So BigHand provides document automation solutions such as the one you're going to see here today, DocID. We also have a very nice template solution. So if firms want standard letters and pleadings and agreements, we provide templates for those. And a numbering solution called Hyperstyles, because most of us are very frustrated or get frustrated trying to format documents in Microsoft Word or trying to generate a table of contents. So our Hyperstyles tool allows you to do all of that inside Word, but a lot simpler and more consistent than Microsoft Word performs for us.
Great. Very good. And as we were discussing when we were getting prepared, I get frustrated with computers the older I get, but I think it doesn't matter how old you are, when you're dealing with styles or numbering related styles especially, that'll frustrate anybody, even these kids that were born with computers in their hands.
Exactly, exactly. When a lot of young associates, when they first come out of college and they're working at a law firm, and I work with them that first week and they see the HyperStyles product, they go, oh my gosh, this would have changed my life in law school because I spent all this time trying to fix formatting in a document. So
there you go. Well, let's take a look at DocID and talk about that.
Yeah, so DocID, I really love this product because a lot of people, you know, they manage or they deal with the document ID solutions that, you know, Worldox provides, and, you know, that's what you have and that's what you use. But usually people want something more. They want more flexibility. They want more options. They want to have more control over the information in the footer and all of that. So that's what DocID does. So DocID, here's the core ribbon. The ribbon doesn't have to be visible in Word, but most of our customers do. It also supports Excel. So when you're creating spreadsheets and you save, we can stamp the document number, client matter number, what have you, into the footer of your spreadsheets. Okay, so DocID has an administrative component because, you know, in a firm perspective, you typically want to implement some standardization for your DocID, like we want the document number as part of the DocID, we want the version number, we want the client matter number maybe. But while a firm may have certain standards, each user sometimes, for legitimate reasons, wants to do something a little different. So we'll talk about the admin side, how you set DocID up, but let's just demonstrate how it works. So I started a document here, and just to kind of look at it, it's a few pages long. It has a page number in the footer, okay? And now I'm going to save it into Worldox. Okay, so you're going to, of course, save your document as you normally would. And I'll just do something here. And I'll just leave it at that, and I'll save it. So most of our firms configure DocID so that it runs automatically once the document has been saved into Worldox. So from time to time, some firms might want it to prompt the user, do you want the DocID? But it seems like most people come to the point where I don't need extra questions or prompts getting information from me. So most people like it to run automatically. So here you can see this DocID is showing me my document number, my version number, and this particular one is also showing me the date and time the document was last saved. That is just one possible configuration. So let's say now as an end user, that's not exactly what I want. Or everybody, let me do this. I'm going to change the view of this document so we can see multiple pages at once, right? So we can see the DocID also, whoops, stamped on every page of the document. Having trouble moving down. There we go. Okay. So let's say that's not exactly what I want. So I come to the DocID ribbon, and maybe I really only want the DocID to show up on the first page. Okay, so I just click that button, and very quickly it only shows up on the first page. Or maybe I want the reverse. I want it on every page except the first page. So I can choose the skip first page option. Okay. Notice that as I'm doing this, it's not impacting any information I already had in my footer. In this case, it's a page number. If I was working on a pleading, I might have had maybe a case number in the footer. I might have had the document title in the footer. Whatever's there is left intact. It doesn't affect it at all. Or perhaps I don't want to see the DocID at all, so I can click the No DocID button. Okay. So various placement options there. One feature that people really like, this one I don't understand the excitement over it, but I'll mention it, and it's print without DocID. Everybody really loves this feature. So what that means right now is, of course, I see the DocID in my document, but when I print, for whatever reason, I don't want it to show up on the hard copy. I want a nice, clean hard copy. So you just click this button, it prints, but the DocID is not visible on the printout. Now, let me do the opposite. Let me just make it a little bit larger so we can now look at how we can control the information that shows up in the DocID. Okay, now I'm just doing this as an end user. We'll take a look at the configuration of it in just a bit. Patty, any questions so far?
No questions.
Alrighty. So this button at the front of the ribbon says BigHand DocID options, and this is where, as a user, I can decide what information I want in that footer. So, for instance, we saw that I have, the last save date. Maybe I don't really like that much information. I don't have a library, so that doesn't pertain to me. So let's say I just want to see the document number and version number. Now, there are other components of the Worldox profile information, that you can include here, but the firm decides which choices they even want to present to the user. So let's say from a firm perspective, I never want the users to have last save date available. I can eliminate that from the screen. Once again, here are my location options. So let's say, as a user, my preferred option is document number and version, and let's say I prefer to have the DocID, we'll say on the last page only, okay? My firm has also given me the ability to change the format of the DocID. This is optional. Some firms don't give this level of flexibility to the end user. But maybe I want to switch it to the right side of the page. Maybe I want a different font. Let's do something that's a little easy to read, and I'll make it a little bit larger, okay? Now, if this is a one-time only change, I would just click apply, and this document would have these settings. As I continue to work on this document, it's not going to change. It's just going to keep the settings that I've specified. If I choose set as default, that means I want this applied to this particular document, and all new documents that I create and save into Worldox, I want these settings to be applied automatically. And then, of course, restore firm default will just take you back to the firm's default settings, okay? So let's do that. So let's say that, and actually let's take a look at that first. Remember I said last page only, right? So let's look at the last page. So there it is on the last page. It is now at the right margin. And if we make it a little larger so we can read it, we can see that now I have the document number and the version number. The last save date went away. Okay, very simple, very nice, very flexible. But let's take a look at the configuration, the setup of the DocID. So it has a utility, and I will launch it for you. And remember I said this manages Word files and Excel files. So you're going to have the ability to set the configuration options for both. So just to kind of take you through this just tells me which document management system I'm set up for. For Word, you have a default column. What information do you want to have inserted by default, okay? Which of these options will you allow the user to change? So everything that's checked here will appear in that DocID options dialog box. So in my example, if I don't want to give users the ability to change or omit the last save date, I would simply uncheck that, okay? Down here is a preview of the order the information will appear in as the user includes this information. So let's just say, I'll take last save date. Let's say for whatever reason, I don't want it at the end of the line. Okay, so notice as soon as I click one of these elements, it shows me any prefix or suffix attached to that item. I have these arrows so I can position the item where I want it to go. Or if I don't want the item at all, I can choose the delete key to take that item off the list, okay? So really simple setup there. Then down here, scrolling down a little bit, we see our stamping format. So again, where do you want it positioned, what font, what size? If you are going to include the date, what date format do you want to apply? And then any special spacing that you want to surround the DocID code. Vertical spacing and horizontal. Do you want to indent it at all? Do you want any spacing above it or any extra spacing below it? You can choose that. And then you have similar settings for Excel, okay? Under global settings, so this is where you can specify, for instance, when you want DocID to update. So of course you want it to update on save and save as. If I save my document as a new version or as a new document, I want to see the document number update. You can also have it update every time the document is open, which we rarely find is necessary, or update on file open. So these are the standards. If you want the DocID to update on print, and if you want this print without DocID available to users, you can select that. Now, these are some nice settings here for Word and Excel under Global. This is where you can have DocID perform differently based on the document type. Now, this only works if you're using templates at all. So let's say in my firm, the litigators don't like to have the DocID at all on pleadings. So I could come down here, I could, enter the name of the pleading template or the folder where the pleading templates are available, and I can say, for those pleading templates, I want no DocID at all, okay? Allow user preference. If I check that, that means, well, if someone wants to do something different, they can. If I don't check this box, then they're not able to change the DocID. That ribbon won't function for them. It'll say this is a locked DocID position. So that's kind of nice if you use templates at all, because sometimes there are good reasons. Maybe in your letter, if you have information in the footer, you likely won't want a DocID in there, to compete with the branding. So maybe on the letter, you might say skip first page. And then again, similar settings for Excel. Now, legacy removal. So most firms that come to us for our DocID solution, they have existing documents, of course, with another DocID solution in it. It's likely the one that came from Worldox or maybe one that came from another product. So once they start to use the BigHand DocID, they open a document that had been stamped with Worldox, and then when they save it, BigHand's DocID is going to put the same document number in the footer. So this legacy removal, when it's configured, it basically says, if I open an old document, if there's an old, product stamp in there, remove it so the user only has one DocID in their document at a time. Okay, so it's nice that that happens automatically. As a user, I won't have to go in there and delete one code, on my own. Because in Word, you'd have to go to, every footer of the document, which is going to be annoying. So it's nice that that does that for you. And lastly, Worldox mappings allows you to, if you have custom fields set up in Worldox, you can tell it, I'm not going to use the traditional client number field or matter number field. I want to use these fields instead. So very configurable. I can't think of anything that we've left out of this product.
Well, I will tell you that I talked about it the other day when I was talking to somebody about Worldox, and they started asking questions about the stamping, and we weren't really talking about DocID. And every question they asked, I said, well, no, Worldox won't do that, but this other product, DocID, will. And I was expecting them to finally say, well, what if it's on Tuesday? We don't want to put the DocID in on Tuesday. I was almost hoping for something that it wouldn't do, but there was absolutely nothing that they wanted that DocID wouldn't add. So, and all the things they wanted were yeah, and all the things were that they wanted were things that Worldox would not do in its doc stamping.
Right.
So I know that. Go ahead.
I was going to say Worldox has been good to us. If a customer does call them and say, why doesn't it do this, or I want it to do that, they will often say, call BigHand.
Right. It's kind of a no-brainer. Now, we'll see that it's even more of a no-brainer. Why don't you tell us how much it costs?
DocID is $80 a license.
And that's a perpetual license. It's not $80 per year per license. It's $80, no. and then there's a maintenance cost. What's the maintenance cost?
The maintenance cost is $14.40. And so
wow.
What the maintenance provides you, of course, is when Worldox comes up with GX9 one day, you would have the new version of DocID that would support GX9 with no additional cost. If we add other enhancements, like we change DocID so you can have it do something different on Tuesday, you would have that new version, automatically. And it's we say it's 24/5 support, but because BigHand is worldwide, it's actually 24/6 because we have an office in Australia. But BigHand, we support our own products. So by phone or email, you call us, can you help us set it up, or can you train our users how to use it? Or we have a question, we're available.
Great. That's perfect. Patty has a question.
I do have one question from Lori. She says, in the past, we could take a Word document and save as a PDF using the same DocID, but as a .pdf file instead of .docx. Is that possible through BigHand or Worldox?
So DocID only stamps when the document is in Word or Excel. So once you stamp it, you have the stamp. If you then convert it to PDF, that stamp would still be in the PDF version of the document.
And if it had the extension, like we're looking at here, it would be the wrong extension because it would be thinking it was a Word document, a docx.
Exactly. So right here, everyone, you have this checkbox that you would probably, include in your configuration saying, I don't want to see the extension.
Yep.
So
in fact, that was the only thing that as we were going through this, I'm like, oh, I don't think people want to see the extension. They'll probably have to get used to that. But yes, this was another thing that DocID does do. It allows you to hide the extension. So I thought maybe I had a strike against you, but I lost that when you got to the last screen. So
yeah, so when the firm does this, they check this box. That means that no one would ever see the extension again. And it's from an administrative standpoint, when you're making these adjustments, let's say you're using the BigHand DocID product for weeks and weeks, and you say, oh, let's change this. You just change one central file, and the user's local settings file automatically syncs to that, so you don't have to redistribute, a new configuration file.
That's awesome. Very good. No more questions, Patty?
No more questions, Paul.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate this, Judy. This is, I was wowed when we were looking at it in a month or so ago, and I was wowed when we were talking about it in Chicago at Tech Show. It's a good thing that we mute the attendees, because I know that when you were showing this stuff in the beginning, first page only, last page only, all but the first page, those are the kinds of things that they ask us about every day in Worldox doc stamping that just can't be done. So I know people were oohing and eyeing when they were seeing that sort of stuff. Cool. Okay, I'm going to take us out here because, of course, if you've ever attended one of our live events, you know that we can't let you get away without showing you how to get to the recorded versions of those live events and what live events and other recorded content we have. So we're going to attorneycomputersystems.com. Notice the emphasis on that last S in the word systems, because without it, you won't get to the right place. And if you get there and click on the word videos, oh, we're not seeing, oh, because I forgot to take control back. Patty is such a good moderator. She keeps me on track all the time. Let's see if I can do this right. So we're going to go back to Paul Purdue, me, as opposed to Paul Purdue Organized. Are you pretending to be me again, Patty? Make presenter, show screen. Okay, we're going to start over again. We're going to say, hey, if you go to attorneycomputersystems.com, well, now I've gotten to a point where it's not even in my saved items. Hold on a second. Judy, remember we were talking about how I hate computers and how I try not to admit that to people? I guess I'm going to have to admit that today. So Attorney Computer Systems, and I will once again emphasize that last S in the word systems, so you can see how wonderfully I do that by highlighting it on the screen there. And then I'm going to show you that if you click on this videos button, you will see all of our titles. We have 6 different series of videos. We, of course, have our Coffee Pot webinars where you are right now. We have our virtual user group meetings, Worldox, Practice Master, and Tabs. We have a different virtual user group meeting for each of our core products. These are all live events. We also have 2 pre-recorded video series. Mary Jo, who works with me, has her eBytes video series. And then we have the Paul and Mary Jo show. Yes, the Paul and Mary Jo show. I remember when my son Spencer heard we were calling it the Paul and Mary Jo show. He will take any chance he can get to make fun of me, and that was definitely one of them. The eBytes video series is, Mary Jo will film 3 of these a month, 1 on Tabs, 1 on Worldox, and 1 on Practice Master. And they are very quick. They're 2 or 3 or sometimes 4-minute videos where we take something really cool that we can explain pretty quickly, and Mary Jo presents it. We then have our longer format Paul and Mary Jo show where we take, 5, 10, usually 15 or 20 minutes explaining a much broader topic and all the subtle nuances that surround that. So these are our pre-recorded, and these are our live events. If you'll go to something like Coffee Pot Webinars that's live, you will find that we, along with the recorded versions of the videos or the live events, we also have a brief description of what it is. We have information on what the next one will be. Next month we're talking about Illuminate from Metager, which is an add-on to Worldox to let you search beyond the scope of just Worldox. And we give you 2 different links that will get you registered for that. They're both the same. People sometimes don't like to click on something where they can't see what they're clicking on, so that's why that one's there. As you scroll down, you will find pre-recorded versions of all the other events that we've ever had in that topic. This is the one we're currently in, so it's not really here. It's currently in post-production. It'll be here in about, it varies from anywhere from 2 or 3 days to sometimes a week or a week and a half, depending on Brad's schedule, our post-production coordinator. And then as we scroll down, we actually find all the prior versions of that particular title there for you to enjoy. We do also have the search capability. So if we were looking, for instance, for something like doc stamping, let's see if I get this right. There we go. There's the one that we're in right now. So we can search and find exactly what we're looking for. So everybody, please remember, these videos are available 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, except, of course, in leap year, when we have them available for that 1 extra day. So please take advantage of them. They're there for you to use, and they're free. So with that, I will wish everybody a good rest of the day and a good rest of the month, and we will see you next month. Thanks much, everybody. Bye-bye.